Hello and welcome. The crippling truck blockade may be over, but another group of disgruntled people have now resorted to this form of protest action. The main arterial road between Johannesburg and Cape Town via Kimberley, the N12, has been blockaded at Hopetown by a group of angry residents since this morning. Most of the through traffic is being diverted onto alternative routes, but some trucks have been stuck there all day. Andries van Zyl reports.
Racial tension at Hopetown reached breaking point several times today. Hundreds of irate residents of Stensville Township have blocked the route since about 7 o'clock this morning in protest against their living conditions.
The main problem is the rent area. We want them, they must be scrapped.
Their grievances are aimed mainly at the White Town Council and centre around the squatter community and the new toilet block. The entrances to Hopetown were blockaded in all directions at times, and the business community was hit by a stay away by the labour force. This afternoon, representatives of the Northern Cape Legislature and the Town Council held discussions with the protesters.
The 4-week-old strike in the motor industry continues to drag on, although there are indications that an agreement is imminent. The strike has already cost the motor industry about 2 billion rands. This report from Denise Smuts.
The 26-day strike by members of the National Union of Metal Workers has had a major impact, not only on the motor industry, but also on the components sector and the export market. Expectations that the strike was about to end have as yet come to naught. However, negotiations between the Automobile Manufacturers Employers Organization, AMIO, NUMSA, and the Iron, Steel and Allied Workers Union continue. Labour Minister Tito Mboweni made a surprise appearance in Port Elizabeth today at the venue where negotiations are in progress. Mr Mboweni, who said he was on an unofficial visit to the city, denied that his presence signalled any intention by the Labour Ministry to get involved in the wage dispute.
At the end of the day, it is the collective bargaining system that must resolve the issues. And all that I can do, which I tried to do in Johannesburg the other week, was to ensure that they keep talking to one another. They must keep talking. And I'm quite certain that from the briefing I've received this morning that that collective bargaining system will indeed continue today. And hopefully, who knows, in the next couple of days we may have a solution.
Mr Mboweni said labour disputes were experienced in every democracy, and suggestions that the government should step in were ridiculous.
The alleged station strangler Norman Afzal Simons appeared briefly in the Mitchells Plain Magistrates Court today. He's accused of the murder of 11 boys and a young man on the Cape Flats. Renee Skebe reports that the case has been referred to the Cape Town Supreme Court.
Mr Simons faces a total of 12 counts of murder. Today he appeared on 11 counts for murders committed in the Mitchells Plain area. The state has linked the Standard 3 teacher to the serial killings of 10 schoolboys and a young man whose bodies were found in the bushes and sand dunes in Mitchells Plain in January. They had all been sodomized and strangled. One of the victims was 12-year-old Donovan Swartz, a former pupil at the school where Mr Simons taught before his arrest. Mr Simons has still not been asked to plead, but the case has been referred to the Cape Town Supreme Court on the 18th of October. He will also appear in the Kuils River Magistrates Court on Monday for the murder of 10-year-old Elroy van Rooyen of the Strand. TV News was prevented from entering the court building this morning, where members of the accused's family attacked and hurled abuse at us.
You wait for Norman until he comes, and you'll do that to him, not to us. You wait until he comes, then you...
They also shouted and spat at the investigating officer, Detective Sergeant Andre Oliver, when he arrived for today's hearing. The family threatened us repeatedly, and we finally left when the situation became extremely tense.
In America, President Bill Clinton's drastic anti-crime bill has at last been approved. But not everyone in the Senate was keen on the bill, nor were they convinced that it would do what Clinton had promised. His promise was to make every neighborhood in America safer.
Police sirens in the United States echo around the world. Many people still have the impression of Washington, D.C., capital of the world's largest democracy, as the crime capital of the world, where the murder rate is among the highest in the world. International tourists who visit the United States are warned of attacks against Germans in Florida or against Japanese touring California.
But we have to face the fact that we have the highest murder rate in the world and that our children are more at risk here than they would be in most other countries and all other advanced countries.
Mr. Clinton's proposal included money for more police, border patrols, and federal agents on the streets, a ban on semi-automatic assault weapons, money to build new prisons, broader application of the death penalty, life imprisonment for repeat criminals, and money for a variety of crime prevention and counter-narcotics programs designed to keep teenagers especially from turning to crime.
Cuban leader Fidel Castro has called on the United States to ease its economic embargo before he tries to help solve the refugee crisis. Cuban refugees are still braving the Florida Straits in their hundreds in the hope of finding a new life in the United States.
The weather might do what Washington can't, hold back the refugees. Some at least are turning back, waiting for another day to risk the dangerous crossing. But thousands are still setting out on their flimsy craft, more last week than in the last 10 years. Megaphone diplomacy carried out through the media while each president refuses negotiations until the other makes concessions is achieving little. President Castro says he wants to raise all kinds of issues, including the US trade embargo, which is helping to destroy his economy. But the American says he'll only talk about the boat people. As they argue, the Guantanamo refugee camp in the US-Cuban base grows. 5,500 refugees in residence, another 7,000 on board US ships, and no timetable for their departure. Both Clinton and Castro know there is a way out, their forcible return. And today, the US Treasury is expected to tighten the trade embargo against Castro. But all the time, the refugees keep coming. Some still haven't heard that the Americans won't take them in anymore. The rest apparently prefer life in a refugee camp to life in Castro's Cuba. That's if they make it that far.
Back home, cooperation in sharing water resources and improving transportation and harbour facilities are priorities in South Africa's new approach to the development of Southern Africa. That's the message President Nelson Mandela gave the Zimbabwean people at the country's annual agricultural show in Harare.
Economic and diplomatic relations between South Africa and Zimbabwe have come a long way. Once South Africa's bitter foe, Zimbabwe has since the election opened its arms to South Africa. Shops are filled with South African goods, and South Africa has been allowed for the first time in almost a decade to exhibit at the annual Harare Agricultural Show. President Mandela opened the show this afternoon. He judged cattle, inspected stalls and the South African exhibition amid intense interest in his presence. President Mugabe told TV News that he was delighted to have Mr. Mandela in his country. But this courtesy was not extended to all South Africans. The SABC's TV team was kept at the airport for 3 hours, was asked 100,000 rands deposit for TV equipment, and was continuously stopped and questioned by the Zimbabwean police. Last night, Mr. Mandela attended a banquet in the Zimbabwean capital held in his honor. The two leaders indicated that included in their country's future plans were efforts to improve relations between Zimbabwe and South Africa, and that they wanted to attend to problems affecting the Southern African subcontinent.
Acting Democratic Party leader Tony Leon has launched a scathing attack in Parliament on Mrs. Winnie Mandela for criticising the system of justice in South Africa in her maiden speech earlier this month. Mr. Leon had to withdraw an allegation that she had conducted a reign of terror. Mrs. Mandela, the Deputy Minister of Arts, Culture and Technology, was not in the National Assembly at the time, but ANC MP Dave Dalling took Mr. Leon to task for his remarks.
Certain people are placed above the law and beyond its reach. That other members of this Parliament come and use the forum of Parliament for self-exculpatory justifications of their trial sentences and convictions.
For heaven's sake, stop polluting every second debate with your frustrations and with your personal animosities.
Now for a couple of snippets of sports news. South Africa has finally struck gold at the Commonwealth Games. It came by way of the bowlers. The women and men's fours both won gold.
After prospecting all week, It was the bowlers who hit pay dirt. Not once but twice, the men and the women earning gold today. The men took on Australia and beat them 21-18. The skip Neil Burkett, what does it feel like to have won gold, the first South African to win gold here at the Games?
Steve, there's so much good happening back home that we're absolutely delighted. You know, bowls has always been the Cinderella game around our country, and when you think there are more than 1.5 million people playing bowls today, and the competition that we've had to stand up to this week, and to come out with such a fantastic side as I had, brilliant. And for our country, we absolutely over the moon.
Equally impressive was the women's fours, who beat Papua New Guinea 24-17.
It was a hard game. They played very positive bowls. You know, it was a good team, team effort all round for us. But it was a hard game. We never quite knew what they were going to do. If we were lying shots, they were up and at it, and got quite a few results.
South Africa will have to appoint a new cricket captain soon. The days of Kepler Wessels as captain are numbered, but he will almost certainly be available as a player and a batsman. It's still uncertain, though, whether the left-hander will be available for future one-day competitions.
Playing against New Zealand is a possibility. I was very happy with my form in the Test series. I thought that I batted probably as well as I've batted in a long time. So we'll just have to see what happens.
Wessels again injured his already battered right knee at the Oval, and this is just one of the reasons for him wanting to stand down as a regular in the one-day squad. The captaincy issue is far from over. Wessels and selection convener Peter Pollock will sit down and discuss the future of South African cricket after this tour. It is a known fact that Pollock and company would want to persuade Wessels to stay on as captain. The reason? South Africa's vice-captain Hansie Cronje is struggling, and it would be unfair of them to place a further burden on his already troubled shoulders. Wessels will lead South Africa onto the field for the last time tomorrow. The second one-day international against England takes place at Old Trafford in Manchester. The side will be better balanced with availability of all-rounder Brian McMillan, who has recovered from a bruised finger.
And now for a brief look at the weather for tonight and tomorrow. No rain is expected tonight or tomorrow. Temperatures will be mild tonight, but close to 0 degrees on the higher ground in the east, particularly in the Drakensberg. It'll be warm over the northeastern Cape. It'll be warm to hot over most of the country tomorrow, but cooler along the Cape's south coast and adjacent interior. That was the early news from me. Good night.